So that's it. What, this some kind of free game Friday?
He said it! He said it!
January is the Monday of the year, so I guess it's fitting Sony would plop a couple of stinkers in our lap. As a free game, I had a hard time finding much of anything wrong with Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, but as I looked closer, I realized something. I don't have much of anything to say about anything at all, generally speaking. Now that Rocksteady has announced no further content after Season 4, which finishes up this month, this strangely live service game will be playable online with all features, but nothing new will be added going forward. What is here now is kind of just fine, and if I'd paid $70 only to witness what they did to my boy, then I imagine I'd have felt the same way many did during the course of its release. Honestly, once you're in the game, traversal feels well thought out and interesting.
Hold for Speed Force? What the why does Boomerang have Speed Force? Throw a boomerang to Speed Force to its location.
Already gone.
Wait, that was kind of cool though.
Combat is mostly satisfying.
As someone who played a lot of synthetic, or a decent bit of synthetic, I guess I should say, technically, I don't hate the perfect reload. It's not implemented super well here, but I don't hate it. It's cool.
And each character seems to play pretty uniquely, even if they all have entirely too many convoluted control schemes.
They all have such different controls. That's going to get so confusing.
The seasonal rewards and the live service aspect of this game as a whole are probably what drove the final nail in the end. This feels like a cool game to invite 3 of your friends into to take down Brainiac, churning through goon fodder along the way. What you get, though, is, like previously mentioned, a good time that seems good enough with the free gear you get for playing, from my experience, and honestly, fine, fun, and interesting, even if the jokes were a bit schlocky at times.
Made the threat assessment matrix.
Okay.
That's not to say they were all bad. There's a moment pretty early on that had me genuinely laughing out loud, and it was classic, good humor.
Hey, Suicide Squad! Fuck you!
But the writing on display seems to suffer from Whedonism more often than not, a phenomenon plaguing film and gaming in which every single moment, no matter how serious, just has to be concluded with a joke. Does it seem obnoxious? Doesn't matter, make a joke. Does it seem played out? Doesn't matter, make a joke. Does it seem ill-timed? Say it with me now. For the love of all that is holy, please just let serious shit be serious for once. The reason I find the live service aspects to vibe towards "fuck you, pay me for every additional cosmetic and playable character" in this game is because they give you everything you need to enjoy yourself. It's like buying a car and getting offered the options that include carbon fiber windshield wipers for an additional $5,000. Thanks, but why would I buy this?
That sucks. An entire character being locked behind a non-earnable currency.
To some, it just feels out of place and unnecessary. To others, it's enough to scream into the void of the internet how much they hate it. It's also a bit ridiculous to microtransact the hell out of a $70 game, but then again, that hasn't stopped the industry, has it? If you happen to be a fan of those windshield wipers, then you'll just have to pay up. Rocksteady said so. What I played of KTJL was fun and even interesting at times, even if Batman as a horror villain was done a little lazily. Is it worth your time and drive space, though? That answer gets a little tricky with the game requiring you to be online seemingly most of, if not all of the time. An offline mode was added in the game's 4th and final season. That offline mode is also needlessly complex, and while playing with others is fun in concept, I never found anyone random to play with, and convincing a friend to play would probably go something like this.
What the is wrong with you?
With how monetized it is, this pseudo-free game might feel the most free of any of them yet, which is sad considering the price many paid to play it. If you're a DC fanboy or girl, then go for it, but otherwise this one's pretty easy to skip. Just be ready to watch Batman die at the hands of these losers. Do you have a need for speed? I have a need for hearing aids, because holy hell does this game start out loud.
Oh yeah, it's really loud. It's really loud.
I ended up lowering the audio to 20%, so be ready for it to scream in your ear upon playing. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit is one of many in the franchise I did not play upon its initial release, so my first experience with it is this remastered one for PlayStation 5. In summary, I expected more. Even without having played the source material, the word remaster should mean polished and the way to experience the game. I walked away from HPR far from disappointed, but not really wowed either, you know? I grew up with Need for Speed being the street racing, free roam games in the form of Underground 2, Carbon, and others. That could easily be me comparing it to those games of a bygone era. However, some of the decisions that can be remedied pretty easily confused and annoyed me a bit. For starters, I didn't encounter many street or city settings, or that Need for Speed vibe I personally associate with the games. Could be me wanting nostalgia where that wasn't the goal, and this does clearly have a focus on the law side of illegal racing. But I have to admit, it feels a bit less like Need for Speed overall than I was hoping for. The lady that tells you about the car you're deciding on, pretty cool, but after the first 3 cars, please just stop talking and let me think.
Making use of all available traction.
Shut up. Good lord. Okay. That's going to be too much. Every car can't just constantly be talked over. Holy hell.
Also, every single race started mid-drive. I can't explain why, but that bothered me and made it feel like less of a race. The multiplayer was fun though, pitting drivers 4v4, cops versus racers, in which you have abilities I completely disregarded until driving as an officer of the law. Those abilities are used to disable racers or mess with the cops in an effort to make it to the finish. In my experience, finishing it is almost as much of a reward as getting first place. With players driving as the police instead of NPCs, the challenge is almost immediately dialed up well past the highest difficulty you'd find in the game, with racers actively stopping and driving backwards and police officers trying to kamikaze you just to ensure you don't cross the finish line. To go back to complaining for a moment, in the menu and in-game, there seemed to be an insane amount of lag or delay.
It's also just so... Okay. Watch this. I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause again. I'm going to try to unpause. I just keep pressing start. How many times do I have to press a button in order for it to register?
In the gameplay, this seemed to be solved by switching from quality to performance. I noticed right away that the car didn't feel as sluggish or heavy, and it greatly increased the quality of the experience, ironically.
Let me try something. We're going to go gameplay. No, we're not. We're going to go display settings. Let's change off of quality onto performance. I think it's because I've been in quality the whole time. This feels so much better.
In a game where the moment-to-moment matters as much as it does, I would assume performance should be the default, or at least a higher frame rate should be expected, especially out of a PS5. Console players play console to avoid having to tweak settings to improve the quality of the gameplay, or get the frame rate where it realistically just needs to be. Small gripe, but I also wish I could just see the entirety of my car when choosing a color or livery, because going in and out of photo mode repeatedly gets a little... It takes 2 hours and pressing the same button 37 times to finally exit photo mode.
I pressed circle and nothing happened. There it goes. Did you see how much of that was a delay?
Overall, Criterion Games has done a solid job with HPR. It is a good time if you switch to performance mode and ignore the few things I find annoying. I'd say it's worth the time to download and space on your drive, despite there being better racing games out there, arcade or otherwise. "Hello, Stanley," said the narrator. "Are you here to review the game or play it?" I think the narrator knows the answer to this, since he seems to know the answer to everything else going on in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. This seemingly simple puzzle game is the highlight of this month for me, filled to the brim with meta jokes and all of the existential job monotony every American hopes to avoid, but most of us fall directly into. Speaking of office life, have you had your morning coffee? You won't need it with Focus by Advanced. Grab a tub for yourself at advanced.gg and use code KAROS10 for 10% off at checkout, because you deserve a pick-me-up, you go-getter. References to the boss's office, a mind control machine, and several diverting paths that either follow or go in direct contradiction of the narrator. The best part? He actively responds to each decision by commenting on the absurdity of your actions or simply continuing the narrative as it was always meant to be delivered. Assuming you enjoy doing what you're told, please just play it. I want to go back off stream and explore more of the available pathways, because I got everything from the most simple of endings to the game hinting at a wider narrative I've only just begun to uncover. I could reference it specifically, but it deserves to be experienced firsthand. It's clear that Galactic Cafe had a vision and knew how to execute it. Shockingly, this is their only completed and released project, at least that I could find. One of the most insane parts about this game is that I've done almost every path, decision, and ending I could easily find, and I'm still seeing moments from others' gameplay showing areas, scenes, and minigames I completely missed. It's baffling and has me genuinely curious about what I missed, how I missed them, and how on earth I should go about accessing them. I have a feeling it has something to do with the true ending that involves the reveal of the main antagonist, but I'm not certain. That mystery, that curiosity seems to be rare in games these days, and is something that should be cherished and enjoyed. This is absolutely worth the time to download and space on your drive. Let me know with a comment or two what all you've experienced so far playing as Stanley the Corporate Slave. And as always, stay frosty and stay humble.